Just for the record, I called the meeting to order at 10:19 a.m. And we will start with the territorial acknowledgement. The Students' Council of the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association acknowledges that we live and work on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples. The University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, land promised to the Six Nation, which includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. As always, we kind of recognize the territorial acknowledgement of where who's situated, but if you're not in Waterloo right now, I would ask that you look up all the treaties that kind of bind with the land you live in, whether that be Waterloo or Toronto or just anywhere in the world, and learn about the history of the land. Moving on, approval of the agenda. I know there was a motion submitted to add new business from the president. President Easton.
Thanks, Cannon. Yeah, so I was thinking it would make sense to just consider it as like another resolution under item 4.1, business arising, for third reading of the proposed WUSA bylaws. I sent an email last night with the results of the roll call vote that we held at the special meeting on the 6th of March, which failed to meet quorum. However, I think we had a pretty substantive discussion, and I think it makes sense to sort of formally ratify council's preference for the faculty guarantee affirmative action model. So yeah, I guess I'll move that we amend the agenda to add the resolution. Be it resolved that Students' Council ratified the results of the roll call vote dated 6th of March 2022.
I'll second. Is there any debate on this motion?
Ben, can you throw language in the chat? Is that okay?
Councillor Macri, go ahead.
Given that the point of quorum is to make sure that all count that we have a quorum before taking action, I think the more proper thing to do would be to redo the vote now that we have quorum, but I think in the interest of time, skip the debate.
In my opinion, that really doesn't make sense, because at that point, we're just saying you either kind of, you don't get to, first of all, they don't know the context of what happened at that meeting. And in general, if you can't debate, then what's the point of reaffirming it unless council votes the, votes down this motion, and then we can deal with that later on. But VP, go ahead.
I was going to suggest if we do end up going in the direction that Vincent is suggesting, that we have, that you can ask people who already submitted their vote whether or not their vote has changed, and that way we can save on time.
Thank you.
That,
VP.
or you see whether or not the people who were absent during the special meeting, whether or not they had given notice that they were. In which case, like, I think it would be reasonable to include sort of their vote with the assumption that they've like caught up on the discussion since then, and also that like there was a legitimate reason as to why they were not able to attend the special general meeting.
VP. Anyone else has any points they would like to make? Councilor Macri, if you'd like, you can make a motion to the what you were saying. Otherwise, we will vote on the motion as made by the president.
Yeah, I'll move what I was saying or what Steph suggested, whichever you think it will be faster.
Could we please type that in the chat for the secretary?
Isn't speaker's job to help formulate motions?
Yeah, so what would you like me to formulate? Like you said, either yours or staff's, like pick one.
Which do you think is simpler?
both of them are really not simple because looking into previous emails right now and seeing if their notice doesn't really, it'll take time. I think it might just be better to. Okay, so you're saying motion to redo the vote but skip debate. Is there a seconder for that? Going once. Going twice. Okay, the motion fails to gain a seconder. Next we have VP Dong. Go ahead, VP Dong.
Never mind. I was just gonna say if Vincent wanted to do the thing, we ought to do the first part of staff's suggestion with like asking counselors who were present whether they'd like to change their vote, and if not, we leave it. And otherwise, people can add. But seeing as it failed, I do think that it's seeing that it failed to get a seconder. I think that it's evident that council would not
There's a
like to.
motion that got a second in chat.
Councillor Macri, unless I call upon you, please do not interrupt the speaker. Or the person who's speaking, I mean. So VP Emo, you want a motion to allow councillors who give notice of their absence to add their vote to the roll call with tabulation. There's a seconder. Do we have, okay. We can empower councillors to change their vote if their opinion has changed. I think at that point we just redo the vote.
I think you can just ask people to self-identify because like the votes are all written down. Basically, if someone's super passionate about like changing their vote.
Okay, there's a seconder. President Easton, is that a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Okay, Mike, can you just summarize, kind of join these motions together?
Yes.
Thank you.
Public tabulations and to empower councilors. I'll just
So-
take both of Steph's chat bubbles.
Yeah,
I can, Canon, if I can speak.
go ahead.
I can like add language to like this effect to what is on the screen right now.
Sorry, what?
Ben's gonna fold it into what's already on the screen, since it is
Okay.
friendly.
Okay. Is there any other? So basically, this amendment will include a new business saying we are not new business. A business saying we are ratifying the results, but allowing councillors who are either present at that meeting to change their vote, and allowing people who gave notice of their absence or are present today to add their vote to that calculation. That's the summary. Is anyone against doing this? Is anyone abstaining from doing this? The motion passes, and we will move on. Next is there any other amendment to the agenda that anyone else would like to propose? No? Okay, we will move on to approval of the minutes. There are no minutes to approve, so we will move on to the reports of the executives. President Easton, go ahead.
Thank you. Since the last meeting of council, the executive team had a meeting with President Goel, talked about, we gave him a briefing on the status of the governance review, how that looks right now. Mike has a hand up. I don't know if that is worth interrupting.
Just for sake of the recording, Vincent, can you mute while you type?
Am I
Thank
not
you.
muted? I have a physical mute button. Is it broken? Okay.
So Moose exec met with President Goel, talked about the status of the governance review, and some of the agreements that we have with the university, including the Student Life Center Operation Agreement, which will need to be updated. And we've informed the board about all that. Then we also talked about 2 advocacy priorities, one being the establishment of a university ombudsperson for student issues, and secondly, the issue of society's ability to assess their fees on a compulsory basis if their memberships so choose through democratic means. This has been an issue that's come up at COPS, and I know the Engineering Society and Mathematics Society have both like indicated a preference to return to what was the status quo before the Student Choice Initiative of 2019, where societies assessed their fees on a compulsory basis with a refund model. And there's a desire to return to that, which we are supportive of. And if the societies so choose, of course, then the annual general meeting, I've given second notice and sent the agenda. It'll be on the 29th of March. It'll include a couple of important member proposals and an update on the status of the Worcester Governance Review, as well as an item from the societies on the compulsory fee assessment that I've just described. Then I have been working on the bylaws and can give a bit of an update on where they're at when we get to that item. Apologies, I haven't had, actually one more thing is the executive team has had a couple of days to do sort of workshopping about planning for the spring term, and sort of how advocacy specifically will work and how we're going to like allocate work among the exec team and like planning for transition in the spring term to the new model. I haven't had a chance to like write that report formally yet, but I guess counselors should know that we are certainly thinking about it and like the continuity of the organization as we sort of approach doing this transition to the new model that is anticipated. Jay?
Go ahead, Jay. Sorry, I forgot we didn't use raise hands in this meeting, and I was just looking at the raise hand functionality. But Jay, you have a question?
Yeah, just for the general meeting. For the agenda, I only saw the titles, but I didn't see the details of each item. Wondering if you are going to publish that.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I'm not sure I understood.
What he's saying basically is on the link attached to the email about which contains the agenda, it only kind of has an index of the items and not the actual text of the motions or attachments and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like you only like there are only like titles or the topics of each items.
Yeah, so so in that email that we sent to students, we included a link to like a landing page on the website. The plan is to upload, I've submitted a ticket to have uploaded like a PDF document of the AGM agenda, which will include the motion texts that have been approved by board, as well as other attachments that are forthcoming, like the auditor's report, the audited financial statements, and the governance review status update will likely have like a slide deck or something that will be uploaded closer to the meeting date in the attachments section of the landing page for the AGM.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks, Jay. Vincent?
I was wondering if you could speak a bit more about moving the societies that voted to. I don't think compulsory assessment is the term we should use. I think that the refund model is more accurate terminology. I wonder if you could talk about them. I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about that. In particular, Maslock, having spoken with our dean, I think at least the math dean is supportive of doing that. He said he'd speak with the other deans. So I was also wondering if Boos has been in contact with the deans on this issue. And I guess additionally, if multiple societies are going back to the refund model, if COPS is considering, or I guess I would encourage them to consider some kind of agreement where if a student uses the services of any society, then they are not eligible for the refund of their own society fees, since I think that would really simplify a lot of the work of like checking fee status and things like that, and preventing people from free riding by not paying their fees, like if they just go to some other society event or something.
Yeah, I haven't. I had not considered the like I guess like cross-referencing of society fees status by individual like students. We have not been in touch with the deans, but I understand that engineering society has also been in talks with their deans about a similar issue. WUSA's kind of role is generally we work more with like the central administration, so that'd be like the associate provost students, the VP administration and finance, and obviously we raised it with the president of the university as well. Cannon, I guess, chair.
And next we will go to Steph for a direct response.
Yeah, so even if the deans were in agreement, it's ultimately a decision of UW Finance in terms of how fees are assessed. And we've heard from them, and we are arguing against this from them, but they generally want consistency between their fees, because in their eyes, they start getting a bunch of emails from students that are like, well, my friend in science is allowed to opt out on like his thing. Why am I, an engineering student, not allowed to do that? So that's sort of where we're trying to tackle the problem from. And the university president has said that he would look into whether or not there was any like legitimate sort of constraints in the financial system preventing us from allowing certain societies to move back to the previous model, or if it was just a matter of UW Finance not, wanting that sort of inconsistency there. But yeah, just so that you're aware, like even if you had agreement from your dean, there's sort of a bigger step that needs to be dealt with. And it's not assured, even if you have the dean support, that you would be able to do that. You would need to have the dean perhaps to talk to UW Finance.
Thank you, Steph. Councillor Macri, go ahead. I would just like to know, I'll be cutting off discussion on this point after this, because this is something which is like most society focused, and COPS is a better place to discuss this than council as a whole, but go ahead.
So I guess just in that case, I would encourage you, if you're not making much progress with finance, to reach out to the deans and see if they can, kind of politically pressure finance to do what's right, just respect the decisions of the students. And also, ask the other societies at COPS if they would look into going back to a refund model, and if so, I'd also encourage you to have discussions about like, cross-referencing of fees in terms of like whether or not students get a refund if they use any society services, and they shouldn't get a refund for their society fee, because then that kind of allows people a free ride.
Thanks, Vincent. Yeah, appreciate the feedback.
Thank you. Does any other councillor have anything they would like to ask to President? Nope. We will move on to the VP Emo's report.
Hello. I believe that I covered most of what I've been doing over the past 3 months within my report, but just a couple things that I want to highlight with regards to a lot of controversy you might have seen on Reddit regarding a certain employer posting a TikTok that they really shouldn't have. We had discussions about that in Co-op Student Council. Just want to provide an update that that employer was blacklisted from the Waterloo Work system. And that from sort of WUSA's understanding, the way that TE followed up with the impacted student and whatnot is all, I think correct. like, obviously it's a really unfortunate situation, but I think like the actions on CE from that standpoint were done in a timely manner and seem to assure the well-being of the student. The student has asked not to relitigate the issue in a way that they would get sort of involved in that. They really want to move on. So I guess keep mindful of that when you're providing updates to other students. I know that this incident has concerned a lot of other students regarding what might happen to them when they're sending information on Waterloo Works and just trust in co-op more generally. But yeah, I just want to assure you that sort of from my perspective in this case, it was handled properly. So we'll be keeping an eye on things to make sure that this continues to be the case. But at very least, that situation has wrapped up. President Easton and I, we've been meeting with GSA and some folks from the university leadership to discuss university ombuds. That seems to be making good progress, and I'm really hoping that by the end of spring term, we should have a job description in place. Oh, that confused me so much. Yeah, provincial elections are coming up very soon, so that's another thing on my mind. Other than that, USA General Assembly took a lot of my time. I think it was last week now, but that since has also wrapped up. I don't believe I have anything else. Let me check. Yeah, the USA fee is not increasing due to inflation just because we haven't had as much expenditure in the past couple of years. We're still in a fairly good financial position there. And I'll guess the only other thing that I'll flag is the VPAs of MAFSOC and NSOC brought about a proposal to CE just on how to improve student trust. CE has asked me to run that document by the more general student body, just to ensure that it is something that all students are supportive of, just because it will impact more than just math and engineering students. So I've made the decision that I'm going to bring this to EAC and Co-op Student Council to have those discussions, and then use that information to inform co-op on which particular points WUSA more broadly is supportive of. So if that is a topic that interests you, you are welcome to come to EAC, which is happening on Thursday. I will find the time and put it in the chat, but just shoot me an email if you would like to attend as a non-voting member and provide your perspective there. Cool.
Thank you, VP email. Before we go into the report, can the person who just joined by the phone, can you just state who you are for the record? And you are muted right now, so if you're speaking.
Cannon, if it looks like they've been muted like by somebody in the call, and there's like a key code if you're calling in from a cell phone to unmute that I don't know, but they might not be able to do it easily.
Oh, fun times. Okay, just, I guess, email the speaker account so that we know that you are here. But that's it. And Councillor Macri, go ahead.
I have a question for the Vice President of Education about a report. There's something about a representative survey platform. Could you expand a bit on what that is? It's not really clear to me.
Yeah, so it's a proposal that was put out like 2-3 years ago underneath VP Garrett's. But essentially it was in recognition of the fact that like we obviously can't spam people with surveys repeatedly. So it would allow, there's a data agreement that would allow us to have like the emails and some like simple data in terms of what faculty folks are from, what year they're in, from across the university, and then we'd be able to do randomized sampling, and we'd be able to reach out to them and say, hey, are you interested in doing like some surveys for us? We'll give you like some compensation in order to encourage you to do them. But it would allow us to get a quick snapshot on students' opinions on a number of items in a way where like we can actually do randomized sampling.
Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
That sounds fantastic. As a follow-up question, once this platform is set up, would we be able to offer societies access to it to help them with their own research initiatives?
That is definitely a conversation that we can have. I think we have to be very cognizant at the beginning when we're rolling out the project, just because the university is very concerned that we're going to spam people with emails, which is not our intention. So we need to sort of prioritize more centralized sort of WUSA functioning. But I don't see why not. We can't expand that to the societies. But I imagine that sort of it would need to be facilitated through WUSA, just because the way that that data agreement seems to be going is there's a lot of boxes and things that need to be ticked off, and there's a lot of responsibility that's put on WUSA to ensure that any sort of data collected through that is retained and used in responsible ways. But it is definitely a conversation that we can have. It's just that I don't think we're going to have it immediately, because we'd like to do sort of pilot tests first.
Thank you, VP and Councillor Macri. Mike, for you to note, the person who joined with the call was Susan from Math Caucus. Point of privilege. Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
My internet cut out just as well. Steph was answering my question, but she was talking about we could potentially offer to societies, but like through WUSA, which I think would be fine. Did you say anything after that?
They basically summarized that it could be something that's done in the future, but in the beginning they have to be more strict about its usage because of the various data agreements with the university about how the data is used, and just since it's a pilot program, so it might be a few years down the line for societies to be able to use it.
And during the pilot, was that when she meant it would have to be through WUSA?
I believe so.
No, I mean, continuously it would need to be through
Okay.
WUSA.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else has any questions for Vice President Education? Okay, we will move to VPSL report.
Greetings. The only things that I'd like to highlight are one, the WUSA Leadership Awards, as was noted prior to the meeting started. The form and the nomination period officially closed at midnight at the boundary between yesterday and today. But for the remainder of today, I will accept nominations by email if you meant to send one and did not get a chance to or did not realize that the deadline was then. So you can email them to me. Secondly, volunteer appreciation is next Tuesday. It will be at 4:30 in the SLC Black and Gold room if you're able to come in person, and there will just be some goodies for you. Otherwise, there's a link online where you can register to receive something remotely as well. Otherwise, I have nothing to add to my written report.
Thank you, VP Dong. Does any councillor have any questions for VP Dong? Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
I was wondering if there are any updates on, I think, the service review from, I guess, a few council meetings ago on making sure that students of, all groups and all faculties feel welcome in WUSA services.
I think that there's a question about setting the timeline for future review. I don't remember that being a specific pulled out question, but The services review recommendations on the staff side, we have developed like plans for implementing each area of the recommendation. There is an ongoing like tracker, and things have been assigned to people, so things are happening as they should be.
Okay, thank you.
VP email, go ahead.
Was it a delicious pancake?
I got syrup all over my fingers.
Okay, we will move on from this fun discussion to the next executive report, which is the VPOF, and I seem to have missed them before, sorry, but go ahead.
I was so ready to report, and then you called on Catherine, and all my momentum is gone. Not a huge update this time around. Most of the stuff I've been doing this past month is sort of administrative in nature or more forward-facing. But a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. Number one, all UPass opt-outs, I believe, have been processed and handed off to UW Finance, so that's sort of out of our hands now, which is nice. As Ben said, we met with the president, raised a number of issues, so hope to see some things come out of there. Regarding the sort of the item from December, when it was asked of the execs or the VPOF in particular to take a look into research and possibilities in the future regarding a WUSA supported student housing. I just want to give a little bit of update on where that's standing with research. So it's in the research queue with the research team, but they're certainly quite inundated with work right now. There's a lot of people wanting research, so they're expecting that stuff to be able to end mid to end of June, at which point we can sort of take a look at the data that they've developed on what other student associations across this country and others have done in sort of regards to this sort of thing, like how they approach the problem of sort of supporting housing, how the specific implementation, if possible, any results, and what happened, how it worked, how it's still working out. And then from there, we can take a look at, okay, do any of these things bode well? Do they bode not well for WUSA trying something out? What, based on prior experience of others, would seem like a path forward, and I can bring that data to council beyond from there. Other than that, I also served as one of WUSA's delegates to USA, which was a good time. A very dense 4 days though, and now my email's backed up. But it's a very good time. And other than that, I don't have a huge amount of council-facing updates, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions for the VPOF? Going once, going twice. Seems like no. Perfect. We will move. Oh, Councillor Macri, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's on the housing initiative. I'm happy to see that we have, I guess, a tentative expectation for when we should see is the final report. Should we expect any kind of updates as the research is in progress before that date, or should we just kind of expect to hear nothing until, was it June or July, I think is what the document said?
That is when, I just want to note, mid-June, mid to end of June is when the research team sort of wraps up their stuff, and it's just going there because I told them it's relatively low priority compared to other things that are a little bit more timely, so it's sort of slotted in near the end there. They say it'll take I guess 4 to 6 weeks worth of their time. We're working on other things, and that's just sort of where it slots into the plan. Is culminating mid to end of June. Once that comes, there's still a little bit more to be done because that's all the look at like what other student associations have done and how all that looks. That doesn't get into what is WUSA well situated to do, if anything, and if it is well situated to do anything, what does that look like? So there's a little bit more beyond that, but that's sort of the timeline for the research, and we don't really know what the next part of it looks like until we sort of see what the research looks like, because that sort of guides us from there. Oh, and on the item of would there be like updates coming through? I don't expect so. It's just sitting with the research team, and as I said, it's a 4 to 6 week thing, backloaded to ending mid to end of June. So I don't expect them to be sending any reports. I'd rather they just work on their research stuff and then not have to bother with me.
Councillor Macri, go ahead with your direct response.
Sure. Yeah, if additional reports will slow them down, then no need to do that. Would council be presented with the, I guess, the initial research report of like what other student associations have done, just so that, you know, council can kind of know like what is possible before we know like what WUS is in a position to do. That way, if council, you know, decides that one of these options is really good, even if we're not in a position to do it, council could decide if we want to try to put ourselves in a position to do something that isn't currently possible.
Yeah, I was intending to sort of distill things down if there was anything feasible or particularly feasible or looked good for council. But if council wants to do that sort of research report, I'm very happy to bring it to council. I would probably caution away from, you know, picking things that don't make sense for WUSA but look good and sort of that approach. But I'm very happy to bring that report to council and they can take a look at sort of what the findings are.
I'd be interested in seeing that as a councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Macri and VP Schwartz. Is there any other councillor who would like to ask questions to VP Schwartz? No, so we will move on to the Board of Directors report. Chair Simpson, go ahead.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Just can you give me a thumbs up? Great. I have my headphones on, so I just wanted to make sure. So I guess I'll start by giving a little bit of an overview of some of the decisions made at the February meeting, as we are now in March. So we did review the second reading of the bylaws that you all had a chance to review, because as I understand, we're now in the third reading and you'll have an opportunity to see that today. The board has not seen that. We'll be seeing that at our April meeting. Or I guess we've received it in our emails, but we have not had opportunity to formally meet. We also discussed in February the governance review process, including some recommendations and thoughts on additional items that we would like to see reports for. So the policy and procedures, processes, kind of more, I guess, nitty-gritty stuff like that. We also ratified council's decision for the general election extension. So that shouldn't come as a surprise, as that was something that council has already approved, and we were just confirming that. At the March meeting, we also approved the AGM agenda as presented to us and made some decisions about member proposals, as I think Ben has already kind of touched on. And the April meeting has not yet been set, but it will be set over the next week. We didn't bulk set our meetings this term, as with the switch to on campus, there was some kind of up in the air as to when board members would be able to meet. So we'll be setting our April meeting sometime in the next week. I don't believe I have any other items that were in public. So I will leave it at that. And if there are any questions for me, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions for the report of the chair? Nope, okay, we will move on to representative reports. We will start with the Arts Caucus.
Hey, it's Anya. Nothing's really going on with the Art Caucus, but that's pretty much it. Thank you.
We will move on to the Engineering Caucus.
I can go. Hi, this is Francis, everyone. Engineering Caucus, everything going, well as per usual, except for, I guess, the one thing that could be noted is what Ben noted in his report, that NSOC has been in discussion about that for those fee changes. I think that's it for now, unless any other counselor wants to pipe in. Thanks.
Seems not. Okay, so we will move to the Environment Caucus.
All right, so for environment, we just had our elections and we're probably going to have our by-election soon. We're planning to have a few in-person events towards the end of the term, so we're doing our charity gala tomorrow and grad ball in April. And we recently just had our nacho crawl, I believe it was a couple weeks ago. We're just finishing up a survey to send out people's thoughts on like ESS and what we should do, and what we want people or what people want to see through our student society. And then we've also hosted an inclusivity panel, which was very successful. And that's about it for environment.
Thank you, Environment Caucus. Next, we will go to the Health Caucus.
Hi, this is Marie from the Health Caucus. Not a whole lot to report this time. We did have a meeting with the health senator to talk about student engagement and possibilities on how to increase that now that we're moving back into possibly more in-person activities for the spring and following terms, but that's about it.
The Health Caucus. Next, we will move to the Math Caucus.
So some of the updates, we've got some of our already execs for next term set up, which is good for like in terms of our elections. The finance update is definitely something that hopefully we'll be able to make some progress on sooner rather than later, sort of instead of like the sort of limbo state where we've indicated that we want it, but just being limited by different things. Another kind of, I guess, interesting thing that's one of our
Sorry, Mary, just a second. Connor, point of order. Go ahead.
Didn't allow for any like speaking orders to happen after the health report. I saw there was a one in the chat. Was the one for the math or was the one for
math?
Okay, sounds good.
Go ahead, Mary.
Decided they're going to do an exit survey similar to like the engineering unofficial ones, but they did the survey review, so good for them. So yeah, you'll get to then soon see how much CS majors make as new grads, which will be interesting. And yeah, I think those are then the major updates coming up from math.
Thank you, Mary. Next we have Vincent.
Yeah, I just want to give an update on big advocacy work that's been happening in MASSOC. So I don't know, as some of you may know, MASSOC's been advocating for a ban on proctoring software. I think it's going well. I think we have a lot of support in the faculty, in various departments. We just passed 1,000 signatures on our petition calling for a ban on proctoring software, which is really fantastic. I'm just gonna poke that in chat if anyone wants to sign it or share it with your constituents. I'd like to give a thanks to SciSoc and ESS for the support that they've given us on this item. I also understand NSOC is considering endorsing a ban on proctoring software at their upcoming GM. I hope that passes. If any other societies, pass stances or already have stances that I don't know about related to the use of proctoring software, please reach out to me and let me know. And also I mentioned the petition. If any societies are, advocating against proctoring software themselves, once I guess the advocacy that we're doing in math wraps up, which should happen at the end of the term at the faculty council meeting, I'd be happy to share that petition with other societies so that they can also present it to their own faculties.
Thank you, Councilor Macri. Next we have, not next, VP Emo has a question.
Yeah, I'm wondering in the advocacy that you're doing directed towards math, if in banning Proctor software, you are also asking it not to be allowed in cases where students would otherwise be required to go to campus or find their own proctor. because I know that was something that we outlined within WUSA's proctoring policy, and I want to make sure that, well, at least if anyone decides to endorse it, that they know whether or not that sort of instance is covered, because I would argue that those instances of proctoring software use where it's a choice for students is generally in the benefit of students.
That's a great question. So I guess one, in math students don't seem to really agree that it should be offered as an option. And it's clear in the petition like that we're asking for a ban. The petition doesn't talk about exceptions. The only exception I'm proposing in the motion is if it's required for accreditation purposes, because I don't think a program should be shut down if some external body has weird rules. The reason that we're asking for the complete ban, and this is something I didn't know when I was working on WUSA's policy, is that it's very, very easy to cheat with proctoring software. It's not fair to honest students to allow the software to be used, considering how easily it can be bypassed. I've seen estimates as, students have estimated as high as 90% of their class is able to cheat when using proctoring software. MassLock, we don't support cheating on exams, which is why we oppose this. It's such an ineffective measure that does next to nothing to protect academic integrity. And considering how easy it is to cheat, as well as the disparate impacts it has on, students of color, allowing it to be used as an option, that option is really only going to be available to, students who have certain types of privilege. Like, if you're, white or whatever category the software considers as normal, then that option would be available to you, and you'd also be able to cheat. But, if you have darker skin or if you have some kind of disability where you have a tick or something like that, the software considers suspicious, that option is not going to be available to you. So, considering the huge equity impacts that this has, I don't think it's really fair to offer as an option, and it's not something that math students want as an option. Instead, what we're asking for is that instructors use different exam formats that work online and don't have proctoring software, so that students don't have to come to campus to write their exams. Instead, they can just have like an open book exam at home, an oral exam, or something like that, where their privacy isn't being invaded and where there aren't these disparate equity impacts.
I guess I'm gonna go next and directly respond to this. I think saying math students don't want it is not a proper analysis of the situation, because he said you have 1,000 people who have signed up. I don't know how many of them are math. Even if you assume all of them are in math faculty, there are still 7,000 people who haven't signed this full-on ban to proctor use. So I think it is a mischaracterization of what math students want. And secondly, I would love to know the source of where you say 90% of the people can cheat on the software, like if there's an academic study done on it or not. Please share that with me. And lastly, I think making it harder for people who might not be in Waterloo to write exams is not something we as student bodies should be supporting. If someone is willing to sign off and then opting into proctoring softwares, that is their choice. It's not up to us to tell them, oh no, you can't do that, as long as they know what the actual pros and cons of the software are. So I think you need to be more mindful about the advocacy you're doing on this department, but that's all I have to say. And next we have Councillor Macri. Go ahead.
Yeah, the reason I'm saying this is what math students want is because this is the stance that has been supported by MassLock Council, which is the representative of math students on advocacy issues, and they set, the stances of the Math Society. And so when I was saying math students want it, that's what I was referring to, that this is something that has been passed by MassLock Council. And for the 90%, that was in a news article. Do you want me to, I can send it to you if you'd like.
Councillor Land, go ahead.
Like as a math student, I actually have no opinion about using the proctored exam software or not. For example, like I'm on co-op term and I'm taking CO 250, and the final exam is in person. that means I have to travel like 1 hour and a half to the exam center. I'm not in Waterloo. The close exam center is in downtown, and I have to travel there. I have no car. I have to take the bus, so it's kind of annoying. If this course offer like a proctor version of final exam, I'll definitely take it. Although it might like compromise my privacy or data issues.
Thank you, Councillor Lan. And I'm just going to make a small direct response, and I'll go to VP email. I think while Matsock might have a stance on something, if at a point you start having a full-on petition about something and you're not getting the majority of people supporting that petition, then Matsock needs to relook into its stance and see if that's what the student body wants. But that's neither here nor there, I guess, at this point. And I will let VP email go.
Yeah, I mean, what MAFSOC does internally is none of my business, honestly. Maybe some of the president's business, but honestly, not really mine. All I'll say is, and I'm like highlighting this for other societies and other counselors, that based on what was just expressed, MAFSOC's stance does differ from WUSA's stance as currently written, just because our stance in particular says that we're okay in cases where students are deciding to opt in. So I guess just be mindful of the fact that, you know, as a society or as an individual, you're going to have to ask yourself that question of, do you want the ban to apply in those cases, or do you not? So just advising that there are potential benefits from sort of proctor software that could exist. Again, totally reasonable to disagree with that, but just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of the fact that there is that sort of inconsistency between the WUSA and MAFSOC policy. But do with that as you will. You know, if MAFSOC wants to argue on something, you know, not going to stop it or whatnot. But just as VP education, if like sort of approached by any sort of representative or body asking what the broader student body stance is on that, our broader sort of stance is that we would prefer the optional component to still be available.
Thank you, VP email. Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
Yeah, so I'm going to disagree with what you said, Councillor Sharma, about only like having 1,000 signatures versus like virtually all are from math students, but we do have a good amount from other faculties as well. But the idea that we need over 50% of the faculty to sign on to this, I think is kind of ridiculous. If that's a threshold you're setting for, I guess, engagement, then like all of us should not have these positions because like turnout in our elections is so low. I think that more people signed this petition than probably voted in WUSA's elections, at least I think for the math faculty's counselors. So yeah, just completely disagree that we need like 3,500 students to sign on to a petition for it to be sort of as legitimate. The purpose of petitions is not to get a majority of like the faculty or the school supporting it. It's just to show that this is widespread support. Additionally, what MASLOG is doing, turns out that the math faculty itself has the power to ban proctoring software in the math faculty. So this, you know, at least the work I'm doing won't really impact other faculties. A full ban on proctoring software with the only exception of accredited programs is what other schools have done, like UBC, because, you know, they view that, you know, we shouldn't allow this racist technology to be used in our schools. I don't quite agree that WUSA's stance, like in principle, WUSA's stance allows proctoring software as, you know, an opt-in option, but in practice, the threshold that WUSA has set for acceptable use of proctoring software is so high that no proctoring company would agree to meet it. Like our stance says that if there's a data breach, then the proctoring companies should have to pay significant financial restitution to any affected students. No proctoring software company is going to agree to that. If the university were to adopt our stance, allowing proctoring software with limited exceptions. No proctoring software would agree to do business with the University of Waterloo because WUSA has set, and I think rightly so, a very high threshold for the rights of students. So while, technically WUSA's stance says proctoring software should be like allowed as an opt-in thing, in practice, no proctoring company would do business with the University of Waterloo if they were to adopt WUSA's stance. At least none of the current ones that are so invasive of students' privacy.
Thank you, Councillor Macri. I think I would direct to respond, but I think people are kind of done with this topic, so I will chat with you offline about this. Next, we will move on to Science Caucus.
Hi everyone. There isn't too much of an update. The SciSol grad ball was held on Friday, and that was very successful. And currently, SciSol is also working on electing their execs for next term, and that's pretty much about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Science Caucus. Next, we have Cambridge Caucus. Seems like we do not have any representative from Cambridge. We will move on to the Kitchener campus. Stratford campus. St. Jerome's. Renison. Okay, we will move on to the officers' report. Speaker Houston, go ahead.
Thanks, Cannon. So I guess the two things are, it's been brought to my attention that we have not updated the policy manual with changes made to policy 73, which is to do with online proctoring, and 25, I think, sustainability. We have the policies, it's just not been updated to the manual yet. And we're hoping to have that done soon. And then the only other thing is attendance. Cannon and I will need to send emails to people who are eligible for removal to sort of inform them of that fact, and I guess give a warning about attendance at future council meetings, especially given the larger council is, the more difficult it is to reach quorum, and if people aren't showing up, and etc. So that's it.
Any questions for Speaker Houston's report? Nope. Okay, we will go to my report. Nothing much to add other than please reach out to your colleagues and ask them to be here. They signed up for a job. They need to be here to do the job, especially when we're going through important stuff like the governance review, which will affect our organization for some time. And since the governance review has been extended, we're still working on the council's work-class appreciation in general, and there will be something that will happen. It just might not be by end of winter term. Next, we will go to the Secretary Schwartz report, or the recording secretary of the Assistant Secretary's report.
Thank you very much. I don't have much to report as the corporate secretary, but as you say, if there's anything the reporting secretary or the assistant secretary would like to say, now is the time.
I will pass. Connor?
Nope, nothing for me.
Perfect. Anyone has any questions for? Nope. Okay, we will move on to AVP Equities report. So I'm not sure if the AVPs are here or not, but they did submit written reports. And if you have any questions about those reports, you can reach out to, or not reach out, but like you can ask those questions here. and the corresponding VPs will take those questions to them and respond to you later on. Any questions for the AVP equity report? Going once, going twice. Okay, AVP experimental and co-op affairs report. Anyone has any questions? Nope. What about government affairs? Executive assistant to the vice president education's report. Nope. Okay, we will move on to business arising from minutes, which there is, I guess, two things. One is the third reading of proposed VPSL bylaws, and the other is ratifying the results from the previous meeting, of special meeting. Both have been submitted by President Easton. I will second. Ben, are they two separate motions right now, or are they just combined into a single one?
I had my understanding of what we approved during approval of the agenda was to add a second resolution clause to this, so it's the same item.
Okay, so we're basically added two extra beat results in a sense.
Yeah, basically this last piece here that you.
Okay,
it's not highlighted, but
yeah, it's right there. Perfect.
So can I speak to it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, board or council met on the 6th of March, didn't meet quorum, but nevertheless discussed the bylaws. You'll recall that there were sort of three options presented at that meeting for elections models. The first being the at-large model that was recommended by the consultants, where, pardon me. At-large model, no constituencies, anybody can vote for anybody, single transferable vote. Then the next model was a sort of ex officio model, where 6 of the seats would be elected by like wholly contained constituencies. So there'd be a specific rep from each faculty. Then the remaining 5 would be elected in an at-large way, and the officers obviously would be at-large as well. Then the third option was at that meeting, we had been referring to it as the affirmative action model, but since the board has met since then, and we think a better way to style it is as the faculty guarantee, which is basically an at-large election system, but provides that as long as at least one person from each faculty runs, they would get a seat on the board to ensure sort of an equal representation by faculty at the board, or to promote faculty representation at the board level, while minimally interfering with like the benefits provided by the at-large election system. So board has endorsed this model as well. So I guess the question right now is to have council, I guess, ratify the decision that was made or the roll call vote that was taken at that meeting, so that we can sort of officially say that council has approved of going forward with this option, and we can indicate so to the membership when we get to time to ratify the bylaws in May. The only other two things I'll say, since the last time council saw the bylaws, we made the change of the language to say the Faculty of Health instead of the Faculty of Applied Health Sciences. And it's not included in the draft that you see, but I have received language from the lawyers about the use of gendered pronouns, which we can replace with basically, there are instances where it'll say, you know, a director when it talks about like a singular individual, we'll talk about his or her responsibilities to do something. We can just say the individual's responsibility to do something and sort of remove the gendered language. So I guess the best thing to do right now is to go through the roll call vote and give people an opportunity to change their vote if they wish, and for those who gave notice of their absence at that meeting to record a vote. So I can share my screen, probably be a good way to do this, and we can just go through the list. And anybody else, I don't know, Mike, do you know, or Cannon, do you know off the top of your head who gave notice for their absence at the last meeting? Because I don't know if I know that.
The only one I can remember was Connor.
Okay.
I tried to look at things, but I didn't really see any notices for that meeting, which is weird because I was sure there would be some, but apparently not.
I think traditionally, like special meetings, like in the last 2 years, I recall that like if somebody can't make it to a special meeting, they don't necessarily need to send regrets if they can't make it, just because special meetings are not like as warning heavy, like they're called on shorter notice where people might not be able to make the accommodation to make it. So that might be a reason. So
yeah, I'm not sure. I think we had expected attendance at the meeting as any other, but I guess we'll go through the roll call and give people an opportunity to change their vote if they wish. And if people have questions or issues, I guess I will see the chat. So we'll start with Amelia, whose preference was first for the faculty guarantee, second for ex officio, third for at large. I guess just interrupt if you want to change your vote, and I'll just read through the roll call. Next was Andy Wren, who had the same choice, faculty guarantee, ex officio, at large. Angela did not vote. Would you
I'm
like to
here,
do so now?
But I would like to do so now. Can I do ex officio, faculty guarantee, and then at large?
Sure. And
Thank
Mike,
you.
can you note that?
I will note, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Angela. Next is Arnav Gupta. I don't know if they are present.
They're not.
Okay. I guess I'll change mine to put faculty guarantee first, then at large, then ex officio. Catherine.
I would not like to change.
Edward. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll assume no change. Francis.
I would like to keep mine.
Jasperin.
No change.
Jay.
At large, faculty guarantee, and ex officio.
Thank you. Marie.
No change.
Mary, and I see this might be erroneous that we don't have a third option here. I guess it would be implicitly at large, but
No change.
okay. Matthew.
No change.
Nashmia. Hearing nothing, we'll assume no change. Carolyn. Hearing nothing, we'll assume no change. Sonia.
No change.
Steph. Hearing nothing, assume no change. Tarun.
I'm afraid of change. So no change. Sorry.
Thanks, Steph. Tarun. Okay, hearing nothing, assume no change. I don't believe that Vicky is present. Vincent.
No change.
And Cannon.
No change. But the only thing is Connor gave us a grid, so he gets to vote.
Okay, Connor, would you like to vote?
Yeah, sure. Could I get for my top choice ex officio, then faculty guarantee, then at large?
Sure.
Thanks.
So I don't believe that changes the resultant outcome of the vote. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but Mike probably does, or off the top of his screen.
Give me a minute to do calculations and then we'll be good to go.
Okay. In the meantime, I guess I'll say, to get back to the question of like the third reading of the bylaws, our intent is to present at the annual general meeting with the status like progress report of the governance review, sort of an explanation of the deliberations between these models at board and council, and how we've arrived at what we have arrived at. At the April regular meeting of council on the 3rd, so in like, I guess a little over 2 weeks, or it might be 2 weeks to the day. Yeah, 2 weeks from now, we will ask council to approve the bylaws. So we're, I guess, being transparent. This is we're coming up to the final approval by council. Then it will go to board. Board gets a rather long notice period for like the final text before it has a vote. We expect will be done before the end of April, and then we'll give notice for a special general meeting to ratify the bylaws. And likely it'll have a coming into force for September 1st, elections in June after the provincial election, and then we sort of get the month of July and August to transition the new board before they take office. And sort of working on, how we're gonna make the transition as, like, minimize the disruption of the transition.
I guess we open it to speaking, like questions, Ben.
Yeah, I don't see any. That's kind of why I stopped talking.
Yeah, I was like, are there no questions or comments about the governance review? Okay, I guess we'll just wait for Mike to give us the final tally to ratify. Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
We're just to clarify, we're not on discussion of the main motion yet, are we? We're just talking about this vote?
No, talking about, well, the vote has kind of already happened, but because it's a part of the same motion, so if you have questions about the other parts of this motion, please read them up right now.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
I'd like to move an amendment to request some, I guess, additional information for, hopefully for the next reading, but if not, like as soon as possible. Most of what Ben was already talking about. So I guess be it resolved that council requests the following documents / changes. So to summarize, a document explaining how advocacy will work, a document explaining how society relations will work, a procedure for how the size of board may change over time, because that's going to be like if the size of board ever needs to change, that's going to be like a kind of big, I think, like political hot potato, I guess, for the next board to change the size of their own body, considering that it's paid. So I think it would be better if we have a procedure in place before they take office. And I guess one change, which is to not have the president preside over board meetings and instead have like some, I guess, governance expert or I guess more generally just like an independent person to chair meetings, just to prevent the president, who would have a lot of power, from somehow like being able to control board too much.
Is there a seconder for this motion?
I'll second it, Cannon.
Okay, President Easton seconds. We will open the discussion for this. Go ahead, VP Emo.
Can I motion to amend the motion such that we vote on each item individually?
So splitting the question, basically?
Yes.
I will second. So basically, folks, what's going to happen right now is, wait, do we, Ben, help me with this here right now. Does the splitting happen after the amendment has passed?
This is like amendment to the amendment, which I don't know if we that, but Vincent indicates that it's friendly. So I think we should just accept, like, we'll do a vote on 4 separate questions as enumerated.
Okay, Steph, sorry, I just want to clarify, when you said split the question, do you mean splitting the question for the 4 things that Councillor Macri is asking, or that's one thing and then the original motion as the other?
No, for the 4 things that Vincent is asking, and then motioning. I like, the decision would be, are we including this into the that entire motion, and then we vote on the entire motion as presented by President Easton.
Okay, it's friendly to Councillor Macri, so I guess we will discuss all of these separately now. The first part to discuss is the supplement. What about the motion is a supplementary document approved by the VP at an ESE detailing how advocacy will work in the new model and a procedure for a strong advocacy committee approved by EAC. Go ahead, President Easton.
So I'll just like say general comments about like all 4 of these for the sake of time, even though they're going to be separate questions. But so given that the suggested approval vote by council is in 2 weeks, I don't know if it's reasonable to have EAC, I question whether we should have these committees approving these. I am happy to bring a report on, like, the executive team specifically has been working on how we're going to manage like society relations and advocacy. And we are like we have like rough documents about like how we plan to do this. We just haven't formalized them. I think it would make more sense for the executives just to simply report on progress that has been made in these areas rather than to refer it to committees, which I think, given a 2-week time frame and that like the agenda for council will need to be sent in like 10 days, I think will be better. Like we'll have an easier time getting the information that council wants to see if we remove the requirement that it be approved by EAC and by COPS. Though we can still like bring those issues there. To the point number 3, that the president should not be the chair of the board, I think that is like a very strong departure from what has been recommended by the governance experts. It's important to recognize that in the new model, the president is not the chief executive officer, as I am presently. The execution of things at the organization is like the responsibility of like the administrative work will be the responsibility of the executive director, who is the chief executive officer. That means that basically then in a corporate structure, you have a chief operating officer, a chair of the board, and like a secretary, or like typically like the 3 officers you have. A president that is not one of those officers is like kind of to be frank, like useless. Like the role of the president is the chief governing officer and should be, presiding meetings of the board. To the point about how size of the board may change over time, the lawyers have indicated that we can, like right now it's just a special resolution of the board. We could make it a resolution of the members as well, if that is like so desired. Like a special resolution of the membership, which would be like 2/3 at a general meeting. That's like, I think, honestly, kind of an uncontroversial thing to do. It's hard to do that. And if the board thinks that it's in the best interest of the organization to do it, the board is often best placed to make that decision, understanding like the electoral pressures and so on. But if there's like a desire to make it a special resolution of the members, so 2/3 majority, then that can be done. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on the 4 things.
Thank you, President Easton. Councillor Macri, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's on the matter bringing into committees. I don't, and I purposely did not request a deadline on many of these. I guess the only one that would have a deadline is if we want to change the part about the president presiding, since that would be a bylaw change. But I'd be perfectly happy with a supplementary document approved by the VP Ed and then have it go to EAC later for further consultations, and like the procedure for an advocacy committee that can be worked out after the bylaws are approved. And so yeah, I don't think the deadlines are a huge deal, although I guess we can maybe remove the and EAC from the supplementary document for advocacy, since that probably couldn't be met in time. But I think the procedure for a strong advocacy committee, that can be done after the bylaws are approved, because it's just kind of like a procedure. I do think the document, to be approved by COPS on society relations, I do think that should have approval by COPS, because COPS is kind of the main body for society relations. Well, I think, yeah, procedures I don't think need to be done by the next committee. It's just by the next meeting, it's just kind of making sure that we have that this is something we want to have in place. Yeah, so I guess if it would be friendly, just remove the and EAC from the point 1, the supplementary document approved by VP at and EAC. If we can just remove EAC, I think that should kind of solve the timeline issues. And yeah, I guess for the COPS, a special meeting can be held.
Thank you, Councillor Macri. I'm just going to ask, there's some questions about the chat, about the deadline and all that stuff. So maybe it will help if you could explain the reasoning behind why you're asking this, in a sense, and why is it attached to this specific motion if you're not requiring it before council approves the bylaws, in a sense?
I guess I would like the supplementary documents for the next meeting, but I don't think, I think for the procedures, I think as long as we know they're coming and they'll be approved by the right bodies, I'm happy with waiting on those.
Okay, next we have VP Dong.
I'm sorry, I guess I motioned to just remove the and EAC from point 1 about the supplementary document. Can that be taken as friendly?
President Easton.
Yeah, it's fine by me.
Okay, perfect. Okay, VP Dong, go ahead.
Hello. I suppose first off, I would like to note that I am caught off guard and frankly a little bit disappointed to have this immediately brought forward as a motion, amending an existing motion for council to vote on instead of simply being discussion when the floor was open for discussion. I'm not sure that I appreciate how binding to a specific vision some of these points are, and frankly, I'm not sure that it is in the best interests of our students. We have been discussing all of these components offline for the past several months and have done quite a lot of work building out our expectations for this. President Easton has already promised several times for several different meetings to give updates on the governance review, including the advocacy model and society relations. That will be coming to the general meeting. He's already noted that we have everything just not formally written up yet. And so I frankly don't understand why this motion is necessary in the way that it is. I don't think that this motion, with respect to item 1, I don't think that this motion changes anything from how we intended to bring things to council, except unnecessarily binding us to specifically a single advocacy committee. For number 2, this was going to happen regardless, so council can pass it. It just doesn't change anything, so there is really no reason to have brought this to the floor in the first place. Number 3, the president has spoken to, and I do suggest that council vote it down entirely because it really is not likely to be in the best interest of students at all. And number 4, again, similarly in line with the idea that this is being discussed and there is truly no reason to bring something to the floor in this way. I think that it is unnecessarily adversarial when the executives are trying their best to work together with council in a collaborative manner to get council the documentation and background that councilors need to feel comfortable passing this governance review. And I think that we have been quite transparent and collaborative this entire time. And I hope that council is able to trust that we have been working on all of this continuously between every single council meeting and do have quite a lot to bring to you as soon as we're able to put it together in a readable format.
Thank you, VP Don. Next, we have a direct response from Councillor Macri.
Yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure why you're caught off guard. I made these same requests in our February meeting. And the reason I'm putting forward to make sure that they happen is just because I do think that these governance changes are very important for the organization, but I couldn't in good conscience support the approval of the bylaws without this information, which is why I want to bind, I guess, the executives to make sure that council has this information for the next meeting. And just, say that this is a priority, that we should have some understanding of how advocacy is going to work, how society relations are going to work. President, and I guess the other 2 are, I guess 3 is a request and 4 is just kind of, I view as doing the next board a favor in terms of just not making it so they have like some political hot potato. I don't particularly care what that procedure on like size of board is. I just think we should have something in place so that board doesn't, run into some major issues if they feel the size of board needs to be changed, so they can point to like, this is the procedure, we followed the procedure. Yeah, I don't really understand the view that this is adversarial, since, as you said, most of this is, documents on society relations and advocacy are already coming. So this is just saying, make sure, this is a priority for council to see, and we want to see it before we approve the final version of the bylaws. I think that's a perfectly reasonable request.
I'm going to quickly directly respond because I'm confused by something you said, Councilor Macri, is on one, you just said that you wanted by the next meeting, but at the same time, previously you said there's no deadline set for it. So I'm kind of confused which one it is in that sense.
I guess it's a soft deadline for the supplementary documents. Just kind of saying like this is something council wants to see. I guess the executives, if they can't finish it by then, they can come to council and present the bylaws knowing that they haven't presented council with the information that they want yet. But yeah, I guess it's the supplementary documents I would just kind of view as a soft deadline for the next meeting, and the procedures that I'm asking for, I guess the deadline would be a bit later. That's just in time that they'd be in place for when the new model is adopted.
VP Dong, I'll let you respond right after I make this comment. Like, as the person who's kind of chairing council right now, I feel like we're setting unreasonable expectations on executives in a sense with the deadline, because like personally, I have sat on COPS and there's no way, at least I can imagine, that COPS will approve this procedure within a week, or not even a procedure, like a supplementary document within a week, because there are long-term differences of opinions that happen at COPS, and it's not going to be easy for any of them to agree to every single point that, or not even every single, in general, approve something in such a short frame. Working with COPS usually takes a long amount of time because there are always new issues that can arise. So I think we need to be more reasonable in that expectation. Go ahead, Councillor Macri.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and that's why I made it a soft deadline. I recognize things like working something out with COPS that could take a good amount of time. If something can't be worked out, then I'd also just be happy with an update from the president about what society relations seems to be going in the direction of. If it would make council happy, I'd be happy to replace like supplementary document approved by COPS with approved by the president, just to make sure we can have that document in time.
President Easton, is that friendly?
I will admit, my attention slipped. I'm preparing.
No, it's
so basically later.
Basically, what Councillor Macri has proposed after my comments was that instead of having a supplementary document approved by COPS detailing how society relations will be maintained, it would instead just be approved by yourself in a sense, and that's presented in the next council meeting, just so that we are making sure that what the council wants is still happening, even if it might take longer than a single meeting with COPS to figure out every minute detail, but just a general update about what has been discussed at COPS about this.
Sure. I guess, I have thoughts that I can say, but I would be jumping because Steph is next, so advise.
Sorry, there's a point of information before. Go ahead, Connor.
Can I just ask I don't know if this is like point of inquiry or point of order, but can I just ask whoever's clicking and typing frantically to stop, because it's kind of distracting and taking away from the conversation? Sorry, I don't know who it is. I feel like it's there's two things going on. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Sure, Connor. Thank you. Next, we have VP Dong, followed by VP Emo, followed by President Easton.
Can I yield my turn to President Easton?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Ben, if you want.
Yeah. Okay, so the governance committee meets on Wednesday. I was planning to share with them the presentation that I intend to give at the annual general meeting next Tuesday. So it'll talk about sort of what I discussed earlier in this meeting about the elections models, timelines, Governance committee, I think, would also be a good place to consider like these supplementary documents on advocacy and like society relations, and like just generally like discussion on transition for the spring term. There's other issues that need to be sorted out, like for example, in the faculty guarantee model, how you consider like students who are cross-registered in faculties. Likely the simple solution is just to have people like self-declare when they prefer, but there are like governance committees already meeting to think about some of these things. So I guess I'll say I would suggest that council vote down these 4 suggestions, not because I think that they're poor ideas, but just I think the way that they're like presented is like maybe like unnecessarily constraining. I think the executives are probably likely in a good position to be able to present like substantial information about these concerns by the time of second reading, but I don't think we'll have time to work through committees and get approvals in such a like a rather prescriptive way. And yeah, like I think it is reasonable for council to ask for these things at the time of them approving the bylaws, to be assured that, you know, we're not running blind, I guess. Then I wanted to, Cannon, ask like maybe a straw poll specifically about the issue about procedure for size of board may change over time. I'm going to share my screen briefly just to show something and like maybe ask council to do a straw poll right now. The issue is, so Article 5.01, immediately following the confirmation of this bylaw by the members, the number of directors shall be fixed at 13. Thereafter, the board may by resolution fix the number of directors of the corporation from time to time. So that's just a simple majority of the board could vote to approve it. The language gives this is a comment from the lawyers. This language empowers the board to adjust the fixed number of directors from time to time. This avoids the need for a special resolution of the members to change the number of directors, a high threshold. Please confirm your preference. So if council wants it to be like, you know, like a high threshold to change the number of directors, I'm happy to take feedback that this should be a special resolution of the members. So 2/3 of a vote at an annual general meeting, or any general meeting. That we can easily make that change, and like if there are concerns about the board like abusing the power to change size, I'm happy to pose that question specifically right now. Otherwise, yeah, I think I would suggest that council vote against these motions. Again, not because they're bad suggestions, but just they're, I think, like unnecessarily prescriptive. And I'd be happy to report on them.
Thank you, President Easton. Do you want the straw poll to happen right now or at the end of this motion? Councillor Macri, point of person privilege. Go ahead.
Can we recess for a bathroom break? It's been 2 hours.
Yeah. It hasn't been 2 hours technically.
It's been nearly 2 hours.
No, it's been 1.5 hours. The meeting was called at 10:19. Sorry, but yeah, sure. We will break for a 5-minute recess and come back. So be back by 12:03, folks.
Hello, recording robot. Hi, YouTube. Hello, YouTube auto captioning system.
Catherine, did you take, well, Mike, can you stop recording for some time? Thank you. I was going to say, Catherine, did you take a Busa share to